To those of you joining us today, thank you for watching the Woburn Spotlight. I'm your host, Tyler Gates, here to bring you some positivity by talking to those in town, making big strides for the greater good. Today I'm extremely fortunate to have with me Joyce Gillis and Pam Giannatis from the Children's Dyslexia Center, Boston North, which is located right here in Woburn.
Yep.
Thank you for joining me today. I think we're pretty excited to hear a little bit more about you and have you share your message with the Woburn community. I'd love to back up just to set the stage a little bit. The Children's Dyslexia Center, you're one of many. On the East Coast, please enlighten me with a little bit of the backstory for our viewers and just tell us a little bit about you both, if you don't mind.
Sure. I've always been very interested in reading and how children read and why they can't read. And I got involved very early on with my own children in the Lexington school system, and I volunteered to help with reading. And I had a degree in education, and I worked with several children in the first grade who had difficulty, and for some reason it just clicked, and I helped them a lot. I didn't have my training at that point, and I said, you know what, this is what I want to do.
That's unique, and I know, Pam, your introduction to essentially reading and education is a little bit different. It kind of came from the Masonic route. Do you mind sharing your experiences? And
no, I'd be happy to, Tyler, and thank you for having us today. This is really fun.
Thrilled to have you.
And Joyce and I really appreciate the opportunity to come before the Woburn community and hopefully surrounding communities and talk about the center, because it is here in Woburn, and it really is a gem that's available to the community. So my personal passion is children's literacy. I really believe that reading is a human right. And we may not think of it that way here in the United States. We might think that way more internationally. But our children, like children anywhere in the world, have some of the same difficulties in learning to read. So that was one reason I got interested in the center. Another is because the dyslexia centers are a Masonic charity, and they were founded and supported by the Scottish Rite body of Freemasonry. I come from a Masonic family. My dad's been a Mason about 53 years, and several of my family members. I was a Rainbow Girl as a teenager, and the fraternity and in its other bodies, I know, do good work and care about the community. So those two elements were important to me. When I met Joyce years ago at the center when it was in Lexington, I thought, I think I want to do something and see how I can help. So the next thing I know, I'm on the Board of Governors. I've been a member of the Board of Governors, I think, about 6 or 7 years. It's a wonderful group of people, and we support the center's needs primarily from a fundraising perspective as well as oversight for the center and whatever it needs.
I'm excited to dive into a few of those topics. And have you both, but before we do that, have you both known each other before those 6 or 7 years, or was that your first meeting with Joyce?
We had some sort of a fundraiser, and Pam came. And we got talking, and as usual, Pam gets involved when she gets talking. So that's how it all started.
I was curious. I didn't know how you two had met. So
It was a yard sale that the center was having
another
years ago.
fundraiser.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, on a Saturday morning, and I stumbled across it and got involved.
And I brought her China teacups.
Yes, I made a contribution, and so now Joyce has my China teacups.
That's right.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And Joyce, you were the original and only director, I just learned today.
That is correct, yes.
Wonderful.
We started in 2000, and we were in Lexington for 12 years. Actually more than that, I guess. But we stopped it was 12 years. And then we came to Woburn, and we've been in Woburn now since 2012. And Woburn has been very welcoming to us, and we're very happy to have met you. And Tyler is very involved in our work, and he supports us very well. And we're just happy to be part of the Woburn community now.
I'd love to hear a little bit about your mission, because I'm lucky enough to have heard about it and know a little bit about what you ladies do and your organization does. Do you mind sharing with the viewers a little bit about the meat and potatoes, what your goal is with this beautiful organization?
I think probably people want to know what dyslexia is.
Please, let's start there.
So I think
that's
maybe that's something that's important.
Huge.
So dyslexia is an underreported disability, and it's inheritable. It's a neurological condition that affects the language acquisition, processing, and decoding. And it's a silent disorder. It affects up to 20% of the population. So imagine for just a moment sitting in your class with your peers and being called upon to read, and you aren't able to speak because the words on the page are indecipherable to you. Imagine the sick feeling in your stomach as you look around at your classmates, as they wait for you to perform, and the teacher is saying, "Go ahead and read." This would be daunting for an adult, but for a young student, this is cause to run and hide and never want to come to school again. And as the years go by, the embarrassment and shame only increase, and school becomes a place of torture rather than a place to learn and grow as it should be. So that is why I got so involved with dyslexia, because it's something that a lot of people just don't even think it exists. They don't understand that it's a neurological condition, that it needs proper training, and that's what we offer here at the center in Woburn.
That's powerful. I'm glad you shared it in the kind of this form of a story as well. I didn't realize 20%. I mean, you got to look around the room and somebody's affected, right? I mean,
That's true.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Most of the time when we're out with groups of people or in the community, or when some of the members of our board who are Masons and they're speaking at their lodges when they're talking about supporting the center, they'll start with a question, how many of you in this room know somebody with dyslexia? And a lot of hands go up. Mm-hmm. And then they see each other, that everybody knows somebody. Mm-hmm. So it's much more common than anybody would know. And we understand that a lot of folks just don't know what the disorder is, that it exists, and you know how it can limit a child as they're growing up. The center is an afternoon program, so it's complementary to a child's daytime learning. And what happens, unfortunately, is if in many of the in the public schools in our area, they don't have the resources to supply the personnel that need to sit down and teach a child one-on-one, or a lot of the staff doesn't have the background training that they need to help a child learn, a child who's dyslexic to learn. Mm-hmm. So that's our availability in the afternoons, and it's a one-to-one tutoring program. Your child gets private tutoring, and these are tutors who have been trained in our method, Orton-Gillingham, which Joyce can talk more about. It's a proven method. It's been around for years. It was developed, I think, partially at Mass General.
In the 20s.
In the 1920s, Mass General Hospital here in Boston.
Just there. Yeah.
And then we also invite adults who might want to come and be trained in Orton-Gillingham and become tutors. So in that way, we're a double resource for the community. And our program is available to families without, if they don't have the ability to pay, that's fine. There is not a formal tuition that's charged. We just would love for families to be able to make contributions to the center, because we do have overhead. One thing I'd love to say is that we're in West Cummings Park, mm-hmm. and Cummings Properties has been very generous to us in helping us out with some of our overhead, so we're grateful to them.
I'm glad you made that mention. You guys because you have a beautiful space over there, yeah. And it definitely is an ideal location for learning, really, it is. So I know that we've kind of set the stage a little bit more about what dyslexia is. So mm-hmm. Can you help me understand, and the viewers understand, what maybe the main focus of the organization is? Is it to teach or to overcome? Or,
right. So the main focus is to provide the children with the tools they will need to be successful readers. Okay. That's what we're all about.
That's the goal.
But too often, otherwise bright children are faced with the inability to do something that other children seem to do effortlessly, and that is to learn to read. This seemingly insurmountable task becomes quite doable when the learner is simply given the tools that they need to overcome this barrier. What they have been missing during the academic process is the way to access the language through the sensory learning paths that focus on their individual learning styles. If the auditory path is weak, then emphasis on the visual and the kinesthetic tactile pathways is necessary. Additionally, care must be taken to focus on the nature of the individual learner to provide independent learning and competence. With the proper education, intervention for all learners can succeed on the path to literacy. I'd just like to relate a story of a young woman who struggled with dyslexia.
Please.
My commitment is to help others learn about dyslexia, giving them a glimpse of how it feels growing up with this learning disability. When I was 9 years old, I couldn't read. I couldn't even read the word "the." I would remember how to read this easy word on some days, and on other days I would forget. I felt stupid. I was teased relentlessly by my classmates. Today, when I see another child read, that smile from deep within me comes from the overwhelming emotional connection I have to the path they are walking, the journey they are taking toward not only learning, but self-determination. Jennifer Smith is a prime example of the journey the dyslexic child needs to take in order to meet the challenges of dyslexia head-on. There is no quick fix to overcoming dyslexia, but there is a path that each child can take to meet the learning difference where they are and to succeed in developing the strategies that will lead them to independent readers. Jenny had to walk that path of overcoming dyslexia. She was labeled as "you're lazy" and "stupid," and as she found the way as a sixth grader she was, who was unable to read, to become, at 16 years of age, an accomplished public speaker and author, a black belt in Taekwondo, a certified scuba diver, an athlete lettering in basketball, a soccer and volleyball player, and a motivational speaker for team leadership. Jenny received the 2009 IDA International Dyslexia Association Remy Johnston Award and is the author of the book Dyslexia Wonders: Understanding the Daily Life of a Dyslexic from a Child's Point of View. We at the Children's Dyslexia Center are dedicated to providing the foundation of literacy and independent thinking to all of our children, one child at a time.
That's something. I know I've heard a few stories, and your graduations that you guys have are probably some of the most powerful events and like moments that you guys have within your organization. Do you mind elaborating on some of the hands-on services, like the actual services, how you go about that? So say somebody or a parent was concerned for their child. How do they approach you? What's that look like, start to finish? Do you mind elaborating a little bit on that?
I think first, and then I'll hand it over to Joyce, but I think first they need to find us.
Yeah.
So they need to know that we're there.
Okay, let's start with that.
And sometimes parents will hear about it through the school system. They might hear about it through a neighbor or a friend. But in the past few years, we've redeveloped our website. We've rebranded our center with a new logo, and we've got some very talented board members, so all of this is volunteer work. And our web address is cdcbostonnorth.org. So you can find us there, and you'll also find our phone number there. And I don't know if you have that handy, and you could just...
I can say
You can say it?
Yeah, 781-281-0492.
I think it is important to start there, right? How do people
How
find
do you find us?
Yes.
And we're in West Cummings Park, as I mentioned, and we're not far from the highway, so the accessibility actually got better when we moved to Woburn. Once they place a phone call, then Joyce, you can pick up what happens from there, because I'm not there when
Right,
the good
exactly.
stuff happens.
Yeah, and to add a little bit to what you said, it's sort of a word of mouth thing. I mean, people come and their children are so successful with the program that the parents can't wait to tell other parents. As soon as they talk to a parent who has a child who's suffering, you know, they say, "Oh yes, you've got to go to the Children's Dyslexia Center, Boston North, because you know, you'll get the help there." And even one of the families that we had about 6 of their children now, and one of them said, "Oh, I don't know if I can go." He says, "Just go." He said, "You'll be successful if you go there." And we've had 4 of them, and we've had them speak at various events that we've had, and it's been very inspiring.
And dyslexia, if I remember right, is something you said that runs in the
can
family,
run in
can
the
be
family.
hereditary?
It's definitely inheritable.
Okay.
There's a gene for it, yes.
Okay, that's why it's so common within that family specifically.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. It's just truly amazing once they get the help. You know, how they seem to just grow out of themselves, you know, and just feel confident. And
What's that help look like? Is it a few years?
It's
is it a 6-month program?
it's a 2-year, but
Okay.
because we've had, difficulty with financial problems, we had to eliminate the summer center. So now it runs more into like 2.5 years.
Yeah, it's the academic year.
Yeah.
With funding, with additional funding, our goal is to bring back the summer program for two reasons. One, that a child can just get through it faster and be successful faster, and secondly, we're able to service more kids as soon as we can. They're tested. It's not based on a time limit that no matter if the child is ready or not, they graduate. They don't. They're tested along the way over and over, and when they've arrived at where we believe is they're able to read without difficulty, they're graduated from the program.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so of course we have a certain capacity at the center. We had 18 students at the end of May when we closed for the summer, and in a few weeks in September we're going to greet 27. So we've got another significant jump for us. Speaking from the board's perspective, it makes us really happy, as I know it does for Joyce and the tutors, but we look at it as we're providing this service to the community, and we know that we need to fundraise all that much more. As I said, the center is available to families regardless of their ability to pay, and that's the way the Scottish Rite Masons founded the charity, as so many of the Masonic charities are. And the board is responsible for the fundraising.
Do you mind spending a little bit of time on that? I know you have a couple of golf tournament and a few other things. I won't spill any beans, but I'd love to know a little bit more about how the organization is funded, what drives some of those programs.
So I don't know if I answered the last question. So before you get into the fundraising, I just wanted to say when the parent calls.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Thank you.
I didn't get into the whole thing. I just wanted to add to what Pam had said. So when the parent calls me, the first thing that I ask them is what's the child's problem and how is it going, and then I ask them if they've been tested for dyslexia, and they're telling me that yes, they've had this problem reading, and they've been tested different years and they're on an IEP, but they're just not getting the help that they need. And so I tell them then, well, so the first thing is you have to have outside testing, and that can include testing right at the school itself. So in Woburn Public Schools, they can go and be tested. Okay. And then once they have the testing, then they send that to us, and then I evaluate it and see if they're appropriate for our program. And once I find out that they are appropriate, then we put them on the wait list. So that's how that goes. So I didn't want to interrupt.
I'm glad though you spent a minute there, because actually because of conversation we passed right over that. I think that's important too.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Good.
My two least favorite words are wait list. We love to be able to welcome children when they need us, and so that's another thing that we work on, is to make sure that there's as much capacity as we can provide.
Okay. So now
so you wanted to
spend a little time on fundraising.
Yeah, sure.
How the organization is funded.
Yeah.
And a little bit of time on maybe the Scottish Rite and how that came to.
Sure. So it costs about $5,500 a year to tutor a child. And that's our overhead expenses. And we do receive a certain amount of funding from Scottish Rite. They have about 45 centers from as far west as Wisconsin all the way here east. There are 3 centers in Massachusetts, Newton and Worcester and Woburn. There's a very active one in Nashua, New Hampshire, up the road, and one in Providence, and Rhode Island, and I believe there's one in Portland, Maine. And so that's a portion of the funding comes from Scottish Rite. And parents are generous. They understand that we are providing this service for their children, and we don't have an expectation from them in terms of a set dollar amount. So they do understand the value. They understand what it would cost them were they to hire a private tutor for their child to come to their home. And so parents are generous. And the rest of the fundraising comes from the board. I also mentioned that Cummings Properties have been generous to us. We have a couple of large-scale events that the board runs. One is our golf tournament coming up on September 17th at Hillview Country Club. And yes, we're excited to have you play again this year, Tyler.
That's right.
It's a great time. It's at Hillview Country Club, and it's Monday, September 17th. And once again, if there's anyone interested in playing, we'd love to have you. Bring your foursome. And we'll give you some more information before we end today. We also have a large dinner auction, silent auction, live auction in April. And next year, I believe it's April 14th.
It's a little late. I think it's like the 20th. It's about the third week.
We'll get back to you.
We'll get back to
Yeah,
the date.
on that one, yeah.
And that has been up at Indian Ridge Country Club in Andover, and that's a lot of fun. And those are our two significant fundraisers. In between that, we also have a walk for dyslexia in October, right here in Woburn. And it steps off from the Masonic Lodge on, I think it's Robinson is the address.
Pleasant.
And there's a barbecue afterward, so that's a fun time. And
Do you have a date for that one? I think you gave it to me.
Yeah, I think it's the, let's see,
Six.
September,
no, it's October.
oh yeah, October
I
20th?
don't have that one.
I think it's October 20th.
Okay, but if
I
somebody is
believe.
interested in that one, they have a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Reach out, say hello.
Definitely.
That's a good starting
Absolutely.
point.
Go online.
Go
All the
online.
information is there.
It's all
Okay.
there.
Good, thank you.
Registration is at 11, I know this, and we start walking about 12, and we walk around the pond, we come back and we have a barbecue.
Yeah.
And it's just a fun family, you know, a couple of hours, bring your strollers, bring your dogs, bring everybody, and get to know us and learn more about the center.
So if somebody watching this wanted to get involved either in the golf tournament, whatever it may be, or just
Yeah.
wanted to meet you and learn more, what's the best way? I just want to throw that out there to make sure. Is it give it a call or shoot you an email?
Shoot us an email from the
Okay.
website. Give a call to the center. We have a lovely administrative assistant, Leslie, who is happy to take the information and get it to us. The board, there's about 13 of us on the board. We are here in the community, and we welcome new board members. We have a few members of the board of school teachers who, you know, like Joyce, getting involved, just have an interest in children's literacy and their education. They come from a particular background and understand how difficult this can be for children and their families. And we've got accountants, we've got graphic designers, and everybody has a skill and a strength and contributes to the board. It's a lot of fun. So that's the volunteer piece, and if somebody feels like they don't have the time to commit to a board, we're always looking for volunteers for our events.
Yeah.
So
Day
it's
of volunteers.
Day of,
Huge.
or contribute
That can't be overlooked.
an item, right, for the
So
for the
important,
auction,
Yeah.
or just come and be a volunteer at the golf tournament and you know, help us out with whatever has to be done.
Or even help out on committees on the board. If
Right,
they can't
just on an
be a
ad hoc
member and
committee.
come all the time.
Exactly
They
that.
have
Yep.
some meetings with the committees, and
There's a
that's
lot of
very
ways to get
helpful.
involved
There's
if
a lot of
somebody,
ways.
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah.
And if you love kids, you know, and you want them to have that skill of reading that we all need to have, you know, please do join us. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. I think if somebody got involved and got to know you and see what the mission is and what you do, it's an easy ask. You buy teacups and you get roped in.
Well, you know, Joyce mentioned graduation, and I have to say the first graduation I attended, it was unbelievable because I was sitting about 10 feet behind one of the brothers of this family who graduated that year. And he stood there, and I could see from a short distance behind him, he had this fully written out page full of words. And he was talking about his experience, and he read that without a problem, without hesitating, without stumbling, without any kind of nervousness or anxiety. And it was hard for me to hold back the tears at the end of it because I understood that this child had gone through transformation. He had gained confidence that I don't see in many adults. He was extremely poised and had the courage and the enthusiasm to tell his story, and also to feel that I was part of something bigger that was creating this transformation for these children. Just a really great feeling.
I know on a personal note, I haven't been to a graduation, but I went to the annual dinner at the Indian Ridge, and there was a gentleman and a female
Yep.
that spoke, and that was the best part of the night. I mean, Hawkapella was good too.
Right.
but
It was great.
Those speeches were just unbelievable, and they were almost tear-jerking.
And he's a student at Holy Cross
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
it was amazing.
with a double major.
Some people
Well, that was-
talk about
yeah,
never wanting to
his
get
brother.
up in front of a crowd. Their biggest fear in life, and they're
Yeah.
both knocking speeches
I was
out of the
surprised because
park.
I hadn't heard from the young lady for many, many years after she graduated, and I couldn't believe all the things that she's doing and, you know, what she's involved in.
So involved.
It was so wonderful.
I think it's important, and all of these are things that I learned from being on the board and being around Joyce and the tutors. Every kid has boundless ability. To have dyslexia doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the child's intellect. It's got nothing to do with it. There are some very successful, very high-profile people with dyslexia. And I mean, a few big names that people would know are Richard Branson,
Charles Schwab.
Schwab, Albert Einstein, Jay Leno, Dean Kamen, who developed the Segway scooter. I mean, there are lots and lots of people in our midst who are successful with dyslexia. Once they just learn to overcome it, they're like anybody who has the desire to do something and achieve a goal.
Joyce, Pam, I look to my left and I'm just sad to say that we're almost out of time. We could fill up another 30 minutes with some stories. Maybe that's what we should do in the future. But I'd love to give you the floor for a moment just so you could speak to the viewers, speak to the parents out there, because I think what you guys have to say is a powerful message. So please, take your time.
Well, I just want to talk to the parents because the parents are the ones who make it happen, and all the parents talk to each other about our center. And that's, you know, how we get our students. And I just want you to know that we're there, and we want you to call us. We don't want you to have your children suffering and worrying and thinking they can't get the help they need, because they can come to the center, be very successful, you know, have one-on-one tutoring with the research-based, cutting-edge Orton-Gillingham approach, which was established in 1920 by Dr. Orton, Anna Gillingham, and Bessie Stillman. And it's still the main way that children are treated with dyslexia, and all the other programs are based on it. So thank you very much. I was very happy to be here.
It was great to have you. We'll make sure to put your contact information back up on the screen now so that if anyone sees this, they can give you a shout. Pam, Joyce, thank you again for coming on. It's always a pleasure to see you both.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for this opportunity. It's been a
anytime.
lot of fun.
Anytime.
Okay.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching today's show with Joyce and Pam. And remember, we all have one life to live. Let's all do our part. I'm your host, Tyler Gates. Join us again next time for another episode of the Woburn Spotlight.